Thursdays, and the spotlight this morning is on the one and only Dan Aseda. Dan Cheesy Aseda. He is a musician and he is the founder of Simmerbox. So all you podcasters who've, recorded your podcast there or are aiming to, here's the CEO. Yeah, and he's trying to be very, very polite right now, but we know. Anyway, Dan, you had mentioned something very important about community.
Yeah.
That lesson that you learned a while ago when Kanji told you, write a list of 150 people, their names and emails, and then talk to them, give you the know-how of how to, build a community. So the demand equals the supply.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yes.
And then you have now this community, and like you said initially in this conversation, that you have recorded more than 600. So let me guess, maybe over 1,000 now?
Yeah, we are almost close to 6,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Episodes,
and I was saying 600, 6,000.
I
beg your pardon.
Through the roof now.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot. So how has that experience been before we go back into your musical journey? How has that experience been, especially when you listen to different conversations?
Yeah.
What I understand, the whole point of podcast is to be off the cuff.
Yes.
Is to be very authentic.
Yes.
Is to say it as it is and narrate your different experiences, whether it's religion, culture, politics, governance, whichever. So how has that been, listening to all that information? Does it get saturated sometimes?
No, it doesn't get saturated. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't get saturated. What I will say is the joy of working with podcasters is that they are bringing brand new perspectives to maybe the same issues. So for instance, if you're thinking about right now, a big conversation that we're having as a country is gender-based violence, violence against women. It's a big current conversation. If you read or listen to how trained journalists will write it, it will be totally different from how an untrained media maker will write it.
Yeah. Because we have to follow some certain regulations.
Yes. Journalists have the structure, right, of the profession, so they write it in that way.
Yeah.
But a person who's not professionally trained journalist will just come with a slightly more raw approach, and sometimes that raw approach is closer to the feeling that we have in our body, and it's really important because it connects to us in that way. And so what we've learned and what we learned to appreciate is all these different ways of looking at an issue are really important. I'll qualify by saying one more thing. The closer the person is to the story, the more authentic the story is. So if you're from Samburu, for instance, and you write a story about Samburu and make a podcast about Samburu, that's going to be more authentic than if you're not. Because you give people more dignity, because these are your people. You give them more, you don't treat them as objects, you treat them as human beings, because you have better connection to that. And so podcasting is kind of like that. It's driving authenticity because the stories are coming from the people who actually live the stories. And that's more exciting than for us who are trained storytellers. We're always outside of the story. It's much harder for a trained storyteller to be inside. Or
even if you're in the story, you have to be removed because professionally you can't just come be yapping about things which can affect people in a very
and that changes how the story lives, right? And so podcasters are giving us this fresh air approach, which I find very interesting. Of course, it comes with problems.
I can imagine.
Yeah, sometimes people speak out of turn, they say the wrong things, they create problems for themselves. I agree, but I think there's an element of risk that we must take. For us to be very authentic, we have to take the risks that someone will say something that's maybe not so clever and we will be in trouble for it.
I see. Now, 6,000 is a big number, but I'm just going to, throw it out there, or rather put it out there. What are some, or what podcast can you say, wow, that really did it for me?
Oh
that was really inspiring. I know.
So I'm a podcast producer, so this is an unfair question because
I know. That's why I put a caveat. I excused myself and said, hey, I'm asking you a ridiculous question, but yeah,
let me say
you must be touched, Dad Nazima.
There are. Let me say what I am excited about right now, because they are pushing the boundary of what podcasting is. We have a really great creator who's called Leslie, who has a podcast called Good Talks Live. And it's this middle ground between urban living, sharing English, Kiswahili, and life of a person who's in early 20s. That's really, really exciting. It's very light, but it's very light-hearted, but it's also very powerful in how he delivers. And so I'm really excited about what's possible for him.
Okay.
I'm excited about a podcast called Hunjwe Podcast, which is delivered in Kivukusu fully, which is so interesting. We record it, and I'm not a Bukusu speaker.
Okay. I would
really
want to
excited
hear
about that.
Yeah.
Because it's fantastic. They're also pushing the boundary of what a podcast is and how a podcast will work in Kenya. So I love that. Maybe the others, I don't know, let me just put this in there. We are working right now to try and get podcasting all over the country, and so we launched a project called Runway Project. And the Runway is basically, we're gonna, if you apply to be on Runway, we will train, we will try to record a podcast season for you, and we will try to get you into the podcast market as soon as possible. So that's available starbucks.net/runway. What we're trying to do there is find more stories from Kenya. So we're trying to work in Nakuru, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Kakamega, and Turkana. So if you're from these places and you think you have a story that you can tell, we're looking for you. Reach out. We'll be happy to get you with a story. And the only rule is, you've got to tell us a story that only you can tell. That's the only
unique
rule.
to you, authentic to you.
It has to be authentic to you.
Fair.
If it's not, then someone else can tell a story. Maybe not you.
That is quite fair. Now, I want to also look at this angle, and I'm going to put you in musicianship, and also the aspect that you work with all these creatives in one block.
Yeah.
Right? And we were talking, during the break, and I'm going to ask you right now, because the thing is, when you are at a particular stage in your life and you're doing so well, and especially in the art scene, there's charisma,
ego.
There's ego, there's that pull. So what happens is, someone can come to you and tell you the way they want to do stuff, and you tell them no, and it's a push and pull.
Yeah.
So how do you manage egos?
It's a very hard question. Yes, we work.
Given that people ulikuwa hapo.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
The thing is, yes, if you're going to work in the creative industry, in the production industry, even in journalism, the gift that you have is that you are a special person, that you can command attention. That's your gift. And so that feeds into the social spaces with ego, of course. What we are trying to do at Summerbox, and we don't always succeed, but this is what we're trying to do, we see ourselves very much as the kingmakers and not necessarily the kings. And so we approach the ego question that way. We are happy to put away our ego to help you achieve your goals, because you're the king when you're in the studio. And that's our first approach. That said, things still sometimes get out of hand, and we do our best to try to manage. But I'll be honest with you, we have had some open fights and some open disagreements with creators. So that's not something that is not going to happen. It's going to happen. But we really try our best to help the creator achieve their goal. And so usually we want to fight about them achieving their goal, not fighting about anything else. We're happy to fight if it's necessary, but we want to fight to help you achieve the goal, not to fight for the sake.
I see,
Yeah,
fair.
that's what we try.
Okay. When we're looking at, when you have very talented people in one room, and all of them offer different but unique things that have a good symbiosis to each other, how do you articulate how to get all that from them at the same time? It's like when you're doing the town halls and you have all these people who have these amazing ideas and contributions to particular discussions which actually move conversations even nationwide, and you need all of them to, how do you make them bring the A game?
Yeah, that one is tough. specifically with the town halls, I'm blessed because one of my best and oldest friends, Mark Masai, is on it.
Yeah.
So he brings a totally different skill set, and his management skills are really, really good in those settings. We try to brief people and offer them the perspective that we are all have a valid opinion. Even though you may not agree with it, there's going to be a valid opinion coming from this room and coming from these people. And once you accept that the person is going to have a valid opinion, it's easier for you to disagree without hating the person. We hope. We hope. But we do try to push the idea that we've got to accept the diverse approach to the same issues. And that's the beginning point. And so again, it sounds like a broken record, but once you believe in a community and once you do the work of a community building, you start to see how different people are, but they're members of the same community. And then we have to try and live in that discomfort. That yes, I don't always agree with this guy, but this guy is in my community. And so his success is my success. And so I don't have to disagree with him today. I can allow him have a moment to shine, and hopefully that moment to shine works for me also later. Okay.
I want us to circle back to music, because you did a lot, and there's an interview you did, and you said you want to be remembered for your contribution and or your rendition of Benga music.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So give us that ideology and your perspective.
Yeah, I've always felt that, when you think about the sounds of the world, I've always felt that the sounds grow, they don't die. They grow, they change, they evolve, they reach different audiences. My best example is reggae. If you listen to the oldest reggae tracks, when they discovered the guitar, and they called it ska, and that sound, the delay sound on the guitar, how they've developed that sound to what it is today is amazing. Artists that were playing that music in the 70s probably can't play what's being played today as reggae. And I felt like in Kenya, our development of the sound was following the same path as the Jamaicans, very similar. They had a big star in the 60s, we had a big star in the 60s. They had a big interest from the UK, we had a big interest from the UK. But then 70s, 80s, we kind of went in different paths. And so I'm sure there's reasons for that, and that's a conversation for another day. But the idea that I felt was that in the 70s is the last time we had a big smash hits that were written in the same style as the stuff we had in the 50s. So in the 50s, there's a song that was a big hit in Kenya, Mtoto Singuo. That was a big hit in the 50s. And then we lost our way. Daudi Kabaka saves us, Kidogo. In the 80s, we have the last big hits, and then politics, society starts to interfere in music, and then we lose our identity. So by the time the music is coming back with big smash hits, it's the late 90s, and Boga Ball 2002, I think. But we've kind of lost the gap between Boga Ball and, things like Jambo Bwana. It's so big. Like, how did we go from Jambo Bwana to Boga Ball? There isn't a thread in between. Yeah. So I felt that all this was Benga music, and somebody needed to do the work of connecting the dots. And I felt like my music was going to be the one to connect those dots. And I felt that I needed to connect those old guys, Lewanyika, the Mushrooms, to the new guys. And I feel like largely my music has lived in that space where it had nostalgia, but it also looked forward. And I hope to keep trying to write music that does that we are a kind of bridge generation.
So you're a good student of history, of music, rather.
Yes, very, very much. I spend a lot of time.
Speaking of that, I saw your tweet on X yesterday about the Kasongo song.
Yes. Did you know, by the way?
I had no idea.
Yeah, Kasongo is the guy who wrote Kasongo, the song, or performed it, the leader of the band, is the father of Shapaman, who's in Camp Mula.
Man, music greats.
Yeah, and that's how music is connected, right? And there's so many other connections. Lovi Longomba, those guys are cousins with Shapaman. And the connections. Femi One, her father is a Mugithi musician. So these connections are, she's a great musician now,
Yeah.
her dad is, and these connections are important.
Yeah.
I feel always, and it's not a knock on how we are, but I feel always that in Kenya's music and creative arts industry, the work done to chronicle, to write the stuff that's happening has never been done in the same way that other industries have done. The Americans,
No,
they talk about everything. You know, they say Jill Scott is connected to Alicia Keys, is connected to John Legend. We know that.
Nephews, cousins, what lines?
Yes,
Third
backup
removed,
singers.
yes.
Yeah, like we know this guy was this guy's backup singer and then started their career. But here we haven't done the same connection, and that's why sometimes we always feel like we're starting brand new. So like the Gengeton folks feel like they're starting brand new, but no, they're not starting brand new.
Yeah.
Their music is based on the stuff that came before them, and it's important to connect. Joakali, the work Joakali was doing, is very, very connected to the stuff that is happening now, and it's nice to think about it that way.
So why do we feel that we always struggle with the issue of what our sound is? It's like we find it, but we lose it. And then we say, no, our sound is Kapuka, Gengeton, what, plus the other new sounds that we have right now. Because
I think that our idea, our starting point was external. We want to define our music the same way the UK defines its music, or the same way the Americans define their music. And so we're using those rules to apply here. And I think that's what's messing us up. Our approach in Kenya, because of our diversity, is less about a single sound and more about different sounds. If I ask you what the Jamaican sound is, you'll say reggae, because majority of their stuff is reggae.
Yeah.
But if I ask you what the American sound is, what will you say?
It's diverse.
It's very diverse.
Yeah.
And it's the same as for Kenya. To add to that, I'll say, there are some industries that have built a sound based on marketing. Not that they've spent a lot of time marketing a word to describe their sound, not that they sound the same. For example, bongo. There's nothing similar between Biki Dude and Diamond. There's nothing similar, except the language. But they all agreed to call it bongo. So then that was easy marketing, same as K-pop. The music is very diverse, but they want to all call it K-pop. So it's an open discussion, but it's one of those things where I think if we choose to market a name, iko sawa, go ahead and market it. But it's not that the sounds are going to be the same. I feel like they should be as diverse as possible. People from Turkana have a sound. People from Pokomo, people in Kilifi have a sound. Yeah. Let's just have both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in your journey of music, and there's a lot happening also behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. And you're also growing privately as you are growing publicly.
Yeah.
So how did you manage those two dynamics of who you are? Because I told you, I know why you're laughing, Dan. I know why you're laughing. I told you, you're someone who is vocal and opinionated on social media.
Yeah.
But you're also very careful, or let me not say careful, but protective of your space.
Yeah.
So explain to us that dynamic.
This is something I learned from Waire, because Waire is the same.
Waire is the king. Waire is the king of that. Yes. I almost forgot. Yeah, he is.
Waire taught me this. He said, at the end of the day, we are working, and you have to be able to put some distance between your work and your private life and your home life. And so if Waire was doing that, and he was very successful at doing it, I felt that it was very important to do that. I've been happy with the results, because it allows me to withdraw. Yeah. If I'm going through something, I want to be able to go through it privately.
Yeah.
Which is difficult if your life is all over the place. For instance, my friend Calligraph was getting slammed the other day for achieving something that's fantastic, you know? He built a house, that's not a joke.
And it's his.
Yeah, and he built a house and he built it out of hard work.
Yeah.
It's not a joke, it's one of the best things that a person can do. But because now it's so public, now everyone is critiquing it. Now everyone is talking about, oh, you're going to need curtains, you built a mall, but this is a private, wonderful thing that, you know, I'm so happy and proud of him for doing this. And for me, that for me is an example of how I think private things should stay private, and then public things should always be public.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest thing that you have learned from this cycle, especially in music, now that you've gone into? Some people would say podcasting is a bit suit and tie.
Yeah.
From the position you're sitting.
Yeah.
You know, you're the helm.
Yeah.
Of this thing, and then now the musician angle is now the outer part.
Yeah.
So what have you learned?
Yeah, my music has working on production has taken time away from working on the music. I accept that. I think I'm evolving as a human being. I'm becoming a different person. There are situations that I see in a different way, and so now it's part of my journey. I'm not out of the music scene. I'm gonna come back a lot more. In fact, I'm working on a record now.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm working on something, so
unaweza kutimbia kidogo?
bado wacha niendelee kuandika.
Okay.
But I'll be back very soon with material that I feel is ready. I just think that this ebb and flow is important for me. I feel like I can't always be on the ebb. Like I can't be on all the time. And it's important that I can be off also. And I feel like that's the way.
Is it part of your personality? For example, would you say, okay, I'm melancholic, you know, and then I also have this outwardness that I prefer to.
Yeah. I think there's seasons. I think every human being has seasons. I think there are times when you are, you know, up here.
It's true. But what brand are we getting from Dan right now?
Right now?
Yes.
No, but this is how I am.
Accumulative, no. Of course, this is how you are. Okay, you're chill, yes. But there are very many, there are different accolades you have right now. Like the other day, you were named 40 under 40.
Yeah.
You're 40 now, but before that, as one of the young to watch who've achieved ABCD. That's big.
Yeah.
You're also in the Core Health Fellow.
Yes.
See, that's a whole